episode. Mike, how you doing?
Pastor Paul Bagley, good to see you tonight.
Yes. I hope you like the pink shirt. It's okay, isn't it? Pink, okay?
Yeah, it's good, girl.
Oh, that wasn't...
What's inside the
It wasn't a real high endorsement, but that's okay. I'll take it, okay? All right, Mike, it's great to have you here tonight. There's so much to talk about. Boy, you talk about calling it like it is. I mean, it's one thing to say we're going to have a super blizzard in the middle of January, and we get it. But it's another thing to say something's about to happen because you told us that the planet tilted, and you said, this is it. It's about to happen. And less than 48 hours, that volcano off the coast of Tonga, that's the most powerful thing maybe we've ever seen in the last 2-3 decades. Tell us, what happened, Mike? What is the fallout of this volcano?
Well, from this one, there were actually two that went off at one time. And the other one was positioned in the North Pacific, deep in the ocean. So this has actually set off a chain of events underneath the ocean, right?
Okay.
We have not only, I know a lot of people also, they think that was Tonga, but trust me, if that was a nuclear explosion, we'd have cesium-137 signatures all over the place. There are none, right? And we already had one of those explosions back in back in 46 and 58, through 58, in the Marshall Islands, the Bravo tests. So we already had that. That's not what this was. I believe that people were looking at some sort of they saw an object that was in 3 frames of film. If that were a missile, you wouldn't see it. You'd only see it in 1 frame. Wouldn't hover over the area and then explode. Just to clear up that. But this volcanic eruption is one of a few, Pastor Paul. Again, underneath the ocean, it is lit up underneath the ocean. There have been several times throughout the last 2 years that the oceans are lit up at night, not by any type of bioluminescence or bioluminescent algae or any life forms down there, but from volcanism. And the majority of the volcanoes are positioned underneath the ocean. This one, being pretty big magnitude, is one of many we're going to have to endure. And a while ago I said that people would begin to see across the oceans ash coming up from the ocean, right? Lots of ash coming up from the ocean. It'll mix in with the water. There's a chemical exchange. It causes some real concentrated acidic rain is what it will do. This will go around the planet as, all volcanoes do, with the exception. The chemical interchange on the water is different for an underwater volcano. It will cause the acidity in most things to go up quite a bit. So that's an environmental blow, so to speak. But imagine if 7 more went off, or 7 or 8 more, just like that went off, right? That was the equivalent. The one that everybody saw was the equivalent of about, it's been estimated to be about, let me not have foot and mouth disease, but about 42 megatons of TNT. 42 megatons of TNT. If we had 7 or 8 of those, that would just, that would nullify any eruptions we've seen in modern times, because most of the monsters are in the oceans. Given the position it exploded in, I'll say it again, Japan has a problem, a big problem. We have, in fact, Indonesia is a big problem area along with Italy. Japan is that's going to become unsafe for a lot of reasons, and that's going to be quite obvious here shortly. And all of this has to do with the changes, within the earth. The magma is not cooling off; it's not stopping. Now that we have a larger set of movements underneath the surface, where it was a quick tilt that we had. That's going to really shuffle up some things down there, and the earth is going to have to balance itself as far as magma. That's going to be quite violent, and it's going to be persistent. So, folks ought to expect even more weather changes now, big time. changes in weather. And we're certainly going to have some super ice melts coming up. That's not good because that's that water contains viruses, very ancient life forms that don't die. There are too many life forms that are starting to pick up, like bacteria that's been alive for 150,000 years, almost held in perfect stasis in some of the glaciers. A lot of flesh-eating bacteria is now loose from those places.
What?
Yeah, and we're talking about something you can almost see with the naked eye. You know, it's that large. So, boy, do we have some problems, and that's just the beginning of it. You know, we're going to deal with some changes, which is why I like the platform that you have, educating people to some of these changes. I hope they're not frightened and they understand that they're okay. They've been okay all their lives. They're going to be okay if the Lord has them. But the world will not. The world is going to suffer big time. And people are not going to understand what's happening to folks. There are going to be no medical explanations as to what's taking place because you're dealing with a lot of exotic life forms on this planet that have been dormant for so long. They're not going to be dormant anymore.
So, Mike, having with this information now available to us, this volcano, I mean, the fact that the ash went almost 12 and a half miles into the air coming from the bottom of the ocean. I mean, that's, as you explained, that's a force. I don't know if I guess we've probably had that kind of a force before, but I don't know when. And is it because of the planet tilt when you said that on Thursday? And if so, Heidi asked this question, and she's been researching ever since you said the planet tilted. I mean, the media's ignored it, Mike. There's not one article on it. The media is not telling us that the planet tilted. They don't want us, apparently, to know. But Heidi's question to you is, did our Earth tilt toward the sun or away from the sun?
We had the North Pole tilted toward the sun. That's toward the sun. So, given our position right now, if we were to go back to the December solstice, take the North Pole and tilt that toward the sun, that was our shift. And it's going to continue to do that. We have to keep in mind the Earth tilts right now. It's at what, 23? Well, let me say this: it's at a proposed 23.5 degrees. That's what everybody can reference. That's not what it is. It will have a shift in degrees, about 22.15428 to 24.60583 or something like that. So it has a 0.4 degree, shift tolerance when it shifts anyway. The problem is we have perturbers out there, more than one. Right now, we have more than one perturber out there right now. Beyond our solar system, more than one. This time is not going to be like any other time in history. Past Paul is going to be much more complicated, much worse. We have, as it turns out, we have more problems than what we thought we had. But we'll get into that, obviously.
Does this, when you say perturbers, are you talking like, Nemesis? Or Planet X, and then of course, what I understand that what's orbiting around it is several bodies, like Nibiru. These are starting to get in? We're about ready to see these, aren't we? Or maybe we already see them in infrared. What's your findings on this?
Oh yeah, we have more than one, and they're not, if they were benign in nature, passive, everybody would talk about them. They wouldn't mind talking about that. But now that people understand mean motion resonance, it's called, it's a mechanism that keeps planets in their respective orbits, no matter how, stable or semi-stable they are, like Pluto. They have found why Pluto orbits the way it orbits, why objects in the Kuiper Belt are bound, some are bound to Neptune's orbital grasp. They have found why in every single model that certain objects point away from the sun on a consistent basis. They found out all of this, but they also found some of the missing items as to what these things were pointing at. They ran the simulations and they had everybody run these simulations, and believe me, the outcome is the same. That there's an identified perturber, something that will alter the orbits of certain planets, because these external objects are orbiting something else. They're not orbiting our sun. They're not. They're orbiting something else. They are way out there orbiting something else. And we just happen to be in a time when their orbits they're also, Pastor Paul, some of these orbits are not on our plane. These things run sheer vertical orbit going right down through the middle of our solar system, right? Which, by the way, mathematically, that is what was expected. In fact, they had 28 points of expectancies regarding celestial mechanics of where objects should be. And do you not know, when they ran the simulations, they found the objects right where they were supposed to be if we were dealing with a massive force out there. But it was even more precise when you add in the other massive object that's out there. So we'll get into that. All these forces,
are they traveling with this binary system? I mean,
you have one. You have a. Yeah, they're with that binary system, but you also have another alternate influence at the exact same time. Then you just watch and see.
What?
As this time approaches, because we have an alternate force out there. I'm telling you, it's going to start hijacking the expectation of all timelines. It's going to cause things to happen sooner than we ever expected. And just watch and see. Just watch and see. I can stake my life on it. My life is not mine; it's Christ's. But I could just put everything on that. So we have problems. We have very different problems. We have both the ancient stories coming true, plus some new ones that we never thought of before. So there we are. This is the time we're in. So these unknown elements are going to speed things up quite a bit.
Okay, so now some of the things you're saying is kind of matching what Stephen Ben-Noon said in my interview with him. That's going to be on this Effects of Planet X, folks. Get your ticket tonight. That some of the ancient texts, things that are going to happen during this time of the arrival of this binary system, is going to be shocking. Okay, shocking. And so you're kind of hinting at that as well. Let me ask you this, Mike. People are wondering if, as you say, the Earth tilted about a half a degree toward the sun. Does that mean we're going to have a hotter summer or a colder summer? And does the volcano play into any of that?
Yeah, I would say so. See, when the Earth tilted the way it did, that vast of a tilt is going to cause a crustal, like an instant crustal shift to very, very subtle. Nevertheless, it was real. And that instant shift caused magma to move, right? To build up in places it didn't build up before, to kind of, it was somewhat unbalanced. You're dealing with forces of inertia. And so it could very well force magma to, for example, it can force magma up against a wall. It could cause magma that was relatively stable to become overpressurized in certain places and then pop, which means, now when you're dealing with geological forces, Tonga was the first one. It's not the last one. It is not the last one.
Okay. Help me now. So if Tonga's, and oh, by the way, is the Tonga one, is that a super volcano down there?
No, it is not.
Okay.
It's a standard volcano, and that's the problem. We have much bigger volcanoes to worry about, much bigger ones. So given what this thing did, and again, it was a pretty good yield. That explosion was a pretty big yield. Imagine one, 10 times bigger than it, 20 times bigger than it, 30 times. We have a potential on this Earth. Think of one that is, with a yield of about 1,000 megatons. And that will be not the big ones, right? Believe it or not, Yellowstone is not going to be an issue. I just don't believe that's going to be an issue. Our biggest issue is going to be from underneath the ocean. I'll give you an example. An area of concentration right now as we speak is thoroughly examining one of the monsters, because here's what would happen if it erupted, Pastor Paul. It would eject material. The amount of material this thing will eject is going to blow your mind, because it's not, this is real. But think about the entire landmass at Papua New Guinea, right? Plus half of Australia being thrown up in the air.
No! Wait.
Yes.
No, Mike. No. Papua New Guinea and half of Australia. Mike, that's the end of the world.
That's essentially, well, not quite the end, but it's essentially the mass of a pretty big comet, right? And that would actually, if that ejected that far, and believe me, by way of the Earth scale, that they're just more than me, but there are a lot of people who believe that's precisely what's going to happen. That the cap of a few known super volcanoes are going to blow their lids underneath the ocean, blowing it out of the water, right? Now, a few things happen when this takes place. Number one, all that material must come back down again. That's number one. But number two, very toxic chemicals will be released all throughout the ocean when this takes place, right? So it will essentially, in one case, where it's sitting right over a concentration of minerals. And if it blew its top, it would release iron through the ocean so fast that it would likely destroy everything in that vicinity, right? And anybody knows that when you have these, when you have somewhat like these coalesced particles in the ocean, it's kind of like pumice, but it's much heavier. When that mixes with the water, right, it turns it into a thick soup. The water turns in, fish can't breathe, and that would be very toxic, very nasty, stinky. You're looking at the release of lots of chemicals, lots of iodine, believe it or not, mercury, things like that. Lots of, but the major ingredient would be a lot of iron. Lots of iron will be released into the ocean, which would, that will be devastating enough, because even any ships, any submarines, any metal structures in that water, Pastor Paul, any metal structures would be eaten away. You know that, don't you? If that iron would eat that stuff away, it would cause that chemical reaction. They would have a lot of corrosion that would take place almost overnight, and that would be the end of that, right? And then it'd only be a matter of time before the currents cause that to go all over the place.
So the
we
water,
have a potential
so basically,
we have 3 of these on the planet, right? 3 of these are on the planet. If all of them went at one time, the water in 24 hours, no water would be good on the face of the earth. I don't believe they'll all go at one time, because they're so massive. And once one of them starts releasing, it's going to relieve the pressure on one of the other ones. But we're going to have 1 of 3 of them blow. One of them is going to blow its top. So they're watching these things like this. These are things
Mike,
outside the scope of most people.
Compared to the Tonga volcano that erupted, if one of the 3 erupts, how much bigger is it than the Tonga volcano?
Oh my! Well, Tonga was like dropping a pebble, right, into a pond, or dropping a pebble in your bathtub, right? This would be like dropping an anvil in your bathtub. That's what it would be like.
So okay, I'm just going to leave that right there for a second. Okay, folks, Mike from the World's with us tonight. I want to thank all 9,000 of you that have joined us live. And there's a lot to look here. This can't be is the question I'm asking. Tell me this can't be, but you hear what Mike is telling you. We know there's been a shift. The planet tilted. He answered the question, toward the sun. That's probably not good. It's going to make some serious changes in our weather patterns, exotic, extreme weather conditions in cold and hot. Mike, let's take a look at something else here while we're at it. and we'll come back to this Planet X, the effects of Planet X. But I'm getting, and I don't even want to know if, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the information I'm getting is wrong. But I'm hearing that there is a next China plague. Do you know of this, and can you tell us what this is and its ramifications?
Well, there is a China's always look, China is positioning itself to take our place. Okay, they're positioning themselves to take the place of the U.S. for the world. So everybody ought to know that. China believes they have a philosophy they work by. China will not exert its own strength, but will first use a tactic of utilizing its enemy's strength against him. And one of our strengths was we had military control, number one. We had financial control of many sectors, number two. And what China is doing right now is right out of an Oriental playbook. They're utilizing our buying strength against us, right? They have broken our dependency almost instantly through their little manufactured problems they have over there. So that's number two. Now we're suffering by way of supplies because it's almost difficult to run a few operations with China no longer shipping. Do you know that shipping anything from China, the shipping rate is much, much higher than what it used to be?
Yeah.
And so what it's caused is a slowdown in production of a great many things. You have factories within the U.S., but they cannot get the plastics anymore. They can't get the packaging anymore, right? Most of that stuff is made, those raw materials coming from China. Can't get them anymore. It's also going to hurt us in a few other areas. And what they did was, China, if China ever perceives someone as an enemy, they're going to get close to them first. They're going to take as much time as it needs to get close to them. They're going to have them dependent upon them. It's just like Lucifer works, right? I'm not calling China Lucifer, but this is Lucifer's tactic. True evil gets close to you. It does not do anything from a distance. True evil will befriend you. It's going to make you trust it, and then it will cause you to fight for it in very weird ways until it can corrupt you or overcome you. And that's exactly what China's doing. They got us dependent upon them. We trusted them. We had, this love-hate relationship with China. All of a sudden, when they get offended, they start cutting things off. They're making their move, right? They have employed military manufacturing like the world has never seen. They are conducting these talks with every single country outside of the U.S. They are, as far as relationships go, they are quickly reaching number one as far as stability for the rest of the nations. And what are we doing? We don't know what we're doing, it seems like. So China, they're working on 6th and 7th generation battlefield equipment. Most of the advancements, as far as civilian advancements, come from China. They are, who can match them in chip architecture, right? Because if you think America has its secrets, oh my, China has quite a few. And they're not playing with theirs, though. They're going to utilize theirs for humanitarian aid around the world. They know the time we're in, right? All this information that most people are starting to come across in the U.S., China knew this, and they're working with the time to position themselves. They are in the Middle East. They are actively negotiating with all parties in the Middle East. They have a restructuring plan, an economic plan. They have all these plans. But the other countries are engaging with them. We saw this with the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to turn out like that according to the rhetoric you heard within the U.S. But when you saw the Olympics, it was a different picture, wasn't it? See, so sometimes we have to look through the rhetoric into the truth, and we're not going to like it because we're just not, most people, they don't have that sort of truth, and it can be confusing. But China is now they're about to go through a pressure phase. And what the pressure phase is, when your enemy is reluctant to utilize his own strength against himself. In other words, when your enemy stops throwing punches, right? That's when you have to use your counterweights against your enemy, and you have to strike. You have to strike your enemy. So I hope that's pretty clear, because they're in that phase right now to strike the enemy, right, in a very, let's just say, an unrecoverable way, right? They're not like us. They're not like a boxer who's going to throw a jab, right?
Did you say, okay, now did you say China is about ready to throw, ready to hit their enemies in an unbelievable way or an incredible way?
Yeah. When in their, just like their philosophy, after your enemy has exhausted, right, hitting you, and you've been utilizing his strength against him, when he stops, it's time to throw a power blow, right? A blow that will just, it's time to throw that kill punch, basically. And so expect a lot of weight behind the next move, a lot of weight behind the next move. This is consistent with their philosophy. It's obviously, if you can read between the lines, what they've been setting up to do. And again, they'll take as much time as they need to do what they have to do, but it just so happens they have us in this position. They have us, and unless we act quickly and responsibly for the sake, if we can stop being so greedy and act on behalf of our people, we could handle all these situations without big issues. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Division has set in, and if you think this division started by itself, you just wait until the trials come up. There are trials coming up that will expose, and if people can be wise, not be emotionally compromised, but be wise, they're going to learn the sources. Who sowed this division? Because I can assure you, it did not come from an internal source.
What trials? Whoa, Mike, whoa. Folks, thank you for being a part of this live audience. This is the largest audience that we've ever had. Over 9,400 and some with us. Mike, what trials are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, we're going to have trials. Listen, throughout the last 6 years, right? 6 years. There are going to be some things blown up that happened in the last 6 years, all the way up to the present date, that people are going to have to give account for. Because one of the statements is the U.S. has somehow been usurped as far as its leadership, and they're going to get to the bottom of it, right? They will most certainly have trials are coming up. People will find out who sowed what, when, and where, right? Who gave in to what and for what reason. And, in some cases it might be a little painful to see, but if people are wise, what they're going to find in the end is that you have external actors working, embedding themselves within our culture, being one of us, only, right? Can you imagine a person who spends a lifetime in the USA and their only goal is to tear it down, right? It's the same way Satan works. The exact same way Satan works. If Satan has to spend a lifetime with you to get to you, that's exactly what he's going to do. And he will befriend you. He'll have that trust bond relationship going. Well, it just so happens that if anybody thought that they're getting away with anything in Washington, D.C., you're wrong. You're wrong. All this is going to be bought out. They're going to get to the bottom of it. My biggest, but again, Pastor Paul, I believe it's going to be too late. Right? It's going to be too late because there are actions taking place right now. We really do need some cohesiveness in our leadership. It's just not there. So because it's not there, it's going to slow our reaction to these issues, and it won't be taken care of. It's just not going to be taken care of. So,
all right. Now, having said all that, let's move into this while we're kind of in this close to this area. So the President of the United States gave a 2-hour press conference, and it was, a lot of back and talk. Look, he staggered and stumbled some, but I listened closely to some of the things he said. Did he open the door to Vladimir Putin to go ahead and take a few steps on into Ukraine? Did he open that door?
And obviously he read quite a bit. That was a big briefing he read, right? That was a big briefing. And sometimes when you're not careful, you can read plans instead of notes. And I think that not only him, it's not only him, Pastor Paul. When he said that what we were going to do and what Russia was going to do. These are clearly reports he has read and recalled. It was something similar to the teleprompter, right? So he actually, when he does this, he recalls reports he's read. So that should be one of those. That should be a big one right there. But he's not the only one doing that.
So you're saying that what he's doing is he reads a lot of confidential or classified documentation, and then they come out because he can't remember what's classified and what's not, and he slips a lot on that.
Well, think of it this way: if you read a bunch of reports on the same subject, right? Now, all of a sudden you're looking at a teleprompter, and the teleprompter holds a similar subject matter. You may stop reading the teleprompter, start recalling by memory things you shouldn't say, and then catch it too late, right? Catch it too late. But this has been happening, Pastor Paul, for a while now. And if people were wise, they would be briefed every single day. I'm sure that he's going to get control over that because he's going to stop talking about those subjects all the way around. You'll see that. His change in strategy is actually to stop him from, he's just going to halt slipping those things out, right? Because he's up there in age. He really is. He's up there in age.
And let's be fair. Let's be fair. He is up in age. He may have some cognitive issues. So let's be fair and not beat him up. But let's say this. But what we heard him say is, it sounds to me like, would you say that Russia, in some kind of incursion into Ukraine, it's about to happen? Would you say that it's going to happen?
Yeah, it sounds like he read a briefing that Russia has made up their mind. That's what it sounds like. Russia has made up their mind. They're going to go in there. And he was already thinking about something proactive he could do following after they went into the Ukraine, right? And based upon their actions, it was a little warning in there. He was talking about troop death or killing troops and things of that nature. So you have somebody who read the briefing, right? They were briefed, but then they recalled what they read at that briefing. And it kind of mixes together. Sometimes things do that.
So it does sound that, and I'm with you, I agree. It does sound like Vladimir Putin has went ahead and said, look, we're going to go in because we don't trust the NATO, that NATO will, eventually let Ukraine become part of NATO, and we can't have that. He can't do that. So having said that, let's say he makes this move. Now that really follows the dream I had 2 weeks ago that I shared. It's on Patreon, folks. You can check it out. It's where I interviewed Agent X. I tell the dream, and in the dream, the first move was that Russia makes a move into Ukraine. But that was not the big deal. That was a decoy almost. That was to draw NATO and everybody into that direction. Then the big explosion happens in the Middle East. Now, I'm telling you, it's a dream. But I'm going to ask Mike, is that a possibility that we're watching?
You know what, Pascal, both by way of hearing things and by way of a dream that I also had concerning Putin back during the times when Obama was president. Something happened. That thing unfolded. But at the end of this dream, there were three big, huge, round targets. And the Russian Navy was leading the charge.
Wow!
And it was not good at the end because I saw the targets. But listen to this: Russia was working with underneath like a hangar on the edge of the water on a concrete. They actually saw this on COT, by the way. I believe that Sister Mayor documented the dream when I told it. I believe Sister Mayor Patty or somebody like that. Pascal, the funniest thing happened. They saw it on the news, the exact thing I dreamed about. They saw it on the news with Russia, the right against the water, and the dates won't lie, of course, but they saw it. But it always makes me hesitant to tell anybody about those three big round dots. The Russian Navy was with Middle Eastern forces. They were with Asian forces, and they had African forces, right? This was the Russian Navy. But the missing element has always been the African forces. That's been the missing element.
Yeah.
Well, until as of late. Now, this was prior to him going to the Middle East, period. This was prior to that, prior to him setting up naval ports in the Middle East. He didn't do that yet. Prior to him having the meeting with President Trump, when they had that meeting right there by the water, the white tents were lined up and everything. The targets are next, according to that dream. The targets are next. He has his eyes on 3 specific targets, and these were huge circles, and that was his ultimate goal. But what's happening now? It seems like Russia, China, segments of the Middle East, well, large segments of the Middle East, these guys are lining up militarily, strategically, financially, because if we keep sanctioning everybody, it's just going to force them to team up against us, is what's happening. Yeah. Right? And with the tensions in the world being so high, it doesn't take much to cause somebody to act, right? So we have this issue ongoing. It's not, our leadership is fractured in America. It really is. They need much, much, much prayer, or our house is going to be vulnerable. And, but these, with your dream and with that and some other, some internal things that I know, it seems like things are unfolding quicker than they should. At an abnormal pace, things are unfolding, right? Yeah. And it always makes me think that everybody's timeline is too long. It's just too long, because the more anybody equates that something is going to take place, it's almost instantaneous these days. Things are almost instantaneous.
Yes.
And, time, what we expected to happen a year from now has happened in 6 months. And what we expect in 6 months happens in 2 months, and so on and so forth. So things have really sped up. We should have had a little more control than what we do now, but we're looking at a food crisis. With a lot of people. Walmart is about to put out a few statements as far as what they're going to do, because they will start processing. They're going to have processing lanes in Walmart here coming up. I'm not sure if it's this month or next month. It's one of the two. These processing lanes are going to be very important for logistics within the USA. We're going to have the railways are going to settle out on a few issues, and they're going to start to contract out some of their transport functionality to other entities like the U.S. military. And so we have all of these things happening all at once. It is so much, it's almost impossible to cover everything that's happening.
Okay, so you're talking, yeah, and it's folks, I want to thank God for all 9,854 of you. Again, another record crowd. Mike, here's the thing. Is Putin in the coffin? Is Vladimir Putin the man you saw in the coffin?
No, he's not.
Okay, that's the answer there. Let me go quickly to this then. Thank you for being honest with it and telling us that. Now, here's the thing, Mike. As the U.S. warships took sail today, was over there in Chinese, which China claims their own territorial waters. We know that's not theirs. They think the whole world's theirs. And now Russia thinks all of Europe's his. Is Russia, China, and Iran, is that the real axis of evil we're looking at?
Oh, that's an unholy alliance that's actually doing quite a bit. They're doing quite a bit. They're doing much more than anybody would ever put. We don't, over here with Western intelligence and with the people over here during this delicate time of political turmoil, it's very important that people don't read bad news, right? So they're not going to permit external stories from overseas to ever come here. They're not going to do it. And when they implement the new IPv system for the internet, they're going to listen to me, folks. We live in the days, you forget about censorship, they're going to do something far worse, and it's already begun. Something I'm not going to name it, but I'm telling you, it's worse than censorship. It's already begun. They're starting, the pressure has begun in certain areas, and they're going to control speech to a large degree. It doesn't matter who you are. They're going to control it, and no one person can ever point to another and say that person did it. And that's the way it's designed. But it's already begun. So, because they've taken down certain people as of yesterday, taken totally down from the internet.
What?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they try to connect, through whom they try to connect. The mechanism on the internet it will not permit them to engage. It just won't do it. And believe me, they have a long list of folks they're going to do the same thing to. These days are like severe days of prayer. But as far as this overseas news and what's happening, the real story with China and Russia and India and the Middle Eastern folks, they're not going to permit anybody over here to hear the real deal about it. We're going to hear the propaganda. They're going to filter out everything because they don't want the people over here getting out of control. We're already out of control, right? So they're going to stop it. They're going to have us hear propaganda. A media campaign is launching. I believe that this week coming up is launching to settle fears of people. Pastor Paul, mark that one. They're going to settle the fears.
Settle fear. Okay, now wait.
This week coming up.
Is this the media? The media? Who's going to do it? The media?
The entire, anybody on media, right, is going to be a part of it. Right? It's going to be a part. And it's so bad, listen, it's so bad that you even have certain stars starting to tell on these secret societies nobody believed in. They're starting to really tell on them, right? Because they say they're not that far, they're not high enough on the food chain to make a difference. And so they're opening their mouths toward things. So it's almost like a total breakdown of loyalty with all these folks.
Folks, Mike around the world's with us right now. Look, you got to listen closely. You got to write this down. Things are going to happen very shortly, and there's going to be a shift. 5G is about ready to kick in, Mike. It's not all the way in yet, is it? What's the delay for?
The airports.
Okay. Well, why is the airport?
They delayed implementation of 5G. Well, you have a lot of aircraft who have they have flight computers and instruments that go with that. They're not sure which item on these aircraft is bound to 3G. So if they turn 3G off, somebody may go up in the air and find themselves not having a certain piece of functionality in that aircraft, right? And then, of course, that will be bad. They also know that it's going to cause massive delays, which is so, but listen to the logic of this. If it's going to cause massive delays, why didn't they implement 5G during the height of the pandemic when nobody was flying? Think about it. Why would they wait until the pandemic was pretty much over, right, where people flew again and then say, hey, we're going to implement 5G, when they could have implemented 5G when nobody was flying? See, sometimes we have to open our eyes to see these things, to see them for what they are. So that's a bunch of hogwash is what that is.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of media hogwash and corporate hogwash. And it's corporations that are doing it. But don't believe for a minute that 5G is going to somehow go backwards in its implementation. Nothing can push 5G backward. 5G has been in operation for the last, 4 years now? It's just not, 5G has not used its full potential yet. That's almost like a message, more of a message than anything, right? So, I wouldn't buy that one for a second. Yeah, it's going to give people fast, communications and downloads and everything else, but hear this. Out of 5G, do you not know that consumers they're going to use a maximum of 10% of 5G. That's it. So all of the consumer downloads, all of their exchange of data and everything else is only going to consume 10% of what's going to be available on 5G. Think about that. Wow. Only 10%. That means if everybody began to download at the same time, they would still only use 10% of what's going to be available with 5G. That is 5G Ultra Band, by the way. So that machine-to-machine communication is going to be pertinent in the days ahead.
Mike, we just hit a record. Mike, we just hit a record. It's the largest online crowd ever with 10,008 people here tonight. I think that what's happened is, as because we don't get any help, the algorithms do not help us. So what's happening is people are hungering for the Word of God. They want to know, how much time do we have left? How many things could happen at once? War, rumors of wars, nations rising against nations, famines, even if it's manufactured famines, pandemics, new plagues, the sun erupting, volcanoes roaring. I mean, think about it, Mike. We can't even get it off. Look, you can't even keep up with it. And if that's the case, If I was to ask you a question, like, okay, here's one. I just was talking to, we interviewed Stephen Benoon the other day. I just interviewed Gil Bazar, just interviewed today Marshall Masters. Mike, I used to say to you all the time, are you worried about Apophis coming in 2029? Marshall Masters laughed at me today. He said that's the least of your worries. If you ever see that day. Is he right? Is 20, okay, if time lasts, is 20.
That's too far out. That's too far out.
What is it, Mike? What are we going to be here? Okay, are we going to be here in 2024, 2025?
If we are here, right, if we're here in 2025, in a world that's been totally changed, I don't think people would count that as a blessing to be here. I really don't, because there is coming a time when the living will envy the dead, and this world is at a quick pace. Nobody has ever seen a pace this fast before. Okay, they just haven't, and we have too many things happening geologically, without anything else. Just our geology is changing so quick, right? It's altering so quick, and it's only a matter of time before you watch this summer when they start talking about the problems with the highways buckling, right? Just watch this summer. And when they start talking about record heat, right? And then at the same time, right in the middle of summer, they talk about areas that are under a deep freeze. Now, at the exact time we have record highs, we're going to have record lows. Now, just watch and see. This is the erratic behavior of the change we're in right now. And that's just what the earth, what that will do to the human body. This is going to no doubt add stress to us, right? And I know that people are concerned about their families. People are concerned about their condition. There are a lot of people out there right now struggling. They're barely making it, right? Some people would just love for all this to be over. But I can tell them this, for that reason, the pace is going to pick up. The pace is really going to pick up. It's almost like that time past, Paul, when I told you that an entire generation is leaving this earth. The Lord has taken that generation home. He's taken a bunch of people home to get them out of here because they're not meant to be here anyway. We're going to have to endure some things we've just not endured before. And the entirety of the heavens is about to change before our eyes. Now, I'm a person, I'm really on a mission here to get, there are people out there that really believe in Christ. They really do. I don't want them operating from some old, dead information, because they're very sincere about having people know what's coming. And I'm on a mission now. I want to get them some of the good information, so their foundation is going to be, real accurate. Because we face some things that are both unbelievable, they're life altering, but they're going to have an impact on all of us, right? All these changes will have an impact. Thank God we have Christ, yes, but there are a lot of people out there, they don't have Christ yet. Right? They haven't answered the call. It doesn't mean they're doomed. It means they have not answered the call yet. And there's a lot of work to be done still. But I think that everybody can sense that the number is dwindling. It's almost like all of who is supposed to be saved, that number is quickly reaching. It's full mark.
Mike, in the last 2 weeks, 10 people that I know have died. 10 that I personally know. And I was sitting there just thinking, every time I pick up the phone, somebody I know just dropped dead. Some of them are dying, from being on a respirator for 4 or 5, 6 weeks. But a lot of them now are just, something's going on, Mike. People are just dropping dead. Are you hearing that also?
Well, I can see the stats of it. And you know what? Part of that I strongly believe. Everybody is not made to go through. Everybody who believes in Christ is not purpose to go through the time we're about to enter.
Yeah.
Some of us are, some of us are not. Because the Lord said He'll never have you in a position beyond that which you can bear.
That's
so
right.
If you really can't take something, you're not going to endure it. You're not going to go through it. But there are a lot of people who will go through it. The other half of that is this. There are so many new diseases on planet Earth, right? COVID-19 that's a I'll tell you, I'll say it again. I'll say this again. You think hemorrhagic fever is bad. There's some things out there that make that look like a cold, right?
What?
And they're going to come out. They're starting to come out with these genome a total different way of vaccinating people that's non-intrusive, they'll do it. And they're going to have these places. Now, all of these are going to eventually be used as a mechanism to say, hey, if you want to live, come over here, right? But what they're really going to say is, hey, if you want to live, be subservient to this. Become a citizen of this, and you can stay alive. If you want to suffer like the rest of them, then don't become a citizen. And we all know what it takes to become a citizen. You have to renounce any previous sovereignty you have loyal to, that you've been loyal to. To become a citizen, you have to renounce all sovereignties. You know what that means? Because it's going to be I'll say this. You're going to see the development of something that it's almost supernaturally charged, but to the average person, it's going to be highly religiously charged, right? Yeah. It's going to be charged. And a lot of people are going to enter in to become a part of this thing. I hope that, the Lord said his people, those written in the book of life, they will not take the mark of the beast. They will not worship the beast. They won't have anything to do with him. But we're going to see a lot of people go over there because not everybody is written in the book of life that we think is written in the book of life. Right?
Right.
And we're in the days now to where the tensions, all this stuff happening on the earth is causing humanity to lose its patience in God's deliverance.
Look at this, Mike.
And they're not waiting. They're looking for alternatives. And Satan loves that.
You know,
looking for alternatives, even in our own hearts and minds. Sometimes, Pastor, when we have to watch, everybody has to watch themselves, right? Because if something doesn't happen soon enough, and if you're caring for somebody, for example, and they're dying, and you're praying, and nothing is happening, sometimes you can find yourself looking for alternatives. Folks, make sure that alternative is not outside of the living God, nor of Christ, and then fight those feelings of flesh every single time, because many will fall prey to this, and they're going to take the alternative, and it will grant them a goodness just for a little while, but it's going to cost them their souls. I hope that nobody goes that direction.
Let's look at this, Mike, because what you're saying is found, folks, in Revelation 16. The Bible says the sun's going to scorch men, okay? It says in Revelation 16:8, and the fourth angel poured out his vial, his bowl, upon the sun. Power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. And men were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which had power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. And they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and they repented not of their deeds. Apparently this mark causes some type of a plague, sore, grievous sore, one scripture says in Revelation. So, Mike, people are going to sell their souls to this beast kingdom. They're going to sacrifice their neighbors, their family members, their friends, just to eat, just to survive, maybe or just to preserve their way of life. It's because the chaos and the carnage and the things that are going to happen. This is really getting serious now. We're in the stretch run. Would you say does Satan know this thing is coming down to an end too? Oh
yeah, he knows prophecy better than most people know prophecy, right? That's why somebody who knows all the scriptures, that doesn't fool me. Satan knows all the scriptures. He challenged Christ with the scriptures, and he understands it. He's the implementation behind some of the faster things that are happening at the White House right now. What do you see? You see confusion, and Satan is the author of confusion. So wherever confusion is, he's present. He's right there. And Pastor Paul, they listen. Like I said many years ago, I said the old system, the system of morality and everything else they're going to do away with. They're going to grind at it and get it away. Do you not know that the public appearance policy is about to change in the USA? You know what that means? You can be half naked and walk around in the USA. That will be passed because nobody cares. You know what else they made it admission to? The institution of marriage has fallen apart. They have a movement right now, right? is called a solo movement. And what that means is these are people who will never get married. They go out and date, never get married. And they said, now you have at least 60% of the people who are now solo. They're not single, they're solo. They don't want to get married, right? So you have all these immoral things just killing the foundation of the family unit, which is why we have so many broken men in this country too, because they have broken families, right? Satan knows this. He knows that if a male does not have that encouragement from a male, his example of the living God is almost taken away. The discipline is not there. And then you have a bunch of rowdiness. You have these rowdy kids if you have no discipline. Well, we're cultivating a society of rowdiness. It's causing people to go off the chain doing what they're doing. They go to the extremes. They're not patient, and they're not looking out for their neighbor. They're looking at the flaws of their neighbor. These are fault finders, tale bearers,
Yes.
Everything God mentioned that he hates, and our society is accepting of this. In fact, if you start speaking against this in public, you're going to be chastised big time. This stuff, Pastor Paul, is coming down the pike big time, and all it would take is one disaster like Tonga to hit a nation and disrupt that nation. And I guarantee you, anything that disrupts these nations, they will implement that plan of citizenship for a brand new type of democracy I want no part of.
So you're saying they're going to do what Rahm Emanuel said: never let a good crisis go to waste. They're just waiting to pounce on humanity and to change the order in which we live. Mike,
it's part of corporate and privileged teaching. Yes, it is. That's
Mike,
what they do.
You've blown my mind. You've dropped so many heavy bombs on me here, but every one of them are true, and everything is happening so fast. You're right; it's happening so fast, and I want to thank you again. We got to get you. Of course, I got to record you here before next Friday, because next Friday is Planet X. Should people get their ticket? Do you got something more for us than what you've already shared as it relates to Planet X?
Oh, yeah, I do. Like I said before, Pastor Paul, I would love for people to understand what they have no access to. Certain things that are not actually classified, but they just simply have no access to it.
Maybe you could share some of that stuff and get it out there for us. Help us.
Absolutely.
Okay. Get your tickets, folks, right now. Mike, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate it. It's another powerful show and a record-breaking show. Let's hope we have a record-breaking amount of people who come to Christ.
Amen. God bless, Pastor Paul. It's always an honor. I'll see you next time.
God bless you, Mike. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not even going to hesitate. 10,000 people. 10,000 right now